Alrighty, so just gonna kind of do a basic walkthrough. This first controller here enabled these 51, 52, 53. I don't know the IP address 54 and 55. So we'll just start here on 53. And the power for this has already been unplugged. Looks like I only used one cord. It can take up to 2. So that cord right here. Just gonna kind of wind this baby up. If I have 2 cords, I try to do a bigger cord like this yellow one leading into a smaller cord, but ideally I'd have 1 cord or 2 big cords. I just don't always have that luxury here, so I'm going to unplug that one. You notice these are on a couple of smart controllers here. Unplugging this one. The reason the smart controllers are optional, but the reason why they're nice is you can turn off these power supplies during the day and turn them on, you know, half hour before the earliest shows start. And they don't use a lot of power when they're off, but they use some, and it adds up. So I'll just put this cord next to the controller it came from here. Now, normally when I start taking down one of these, I will go make sure the power is removed, which it is. Remove anything that was plugged into it, which in this case was a 3-to-1. And then I will start unplugging the 8 here. The way these are in 3, so I'll unplug number 1, number 2. Each group of 3 is 1. So I'll go in and find number 1 here and unplug it. And then when I do that, I will string it up to here so that the slack is not dangling anymore. So I know I got 1, 2, 3. Then the second set of 3 is number 2. So I remove that one. And I'll just do them all within reach right now. So, and then number 3. There is no difference on these things. These are all the same. It's just however we've installed them. I'll just install the first one of these to number 1, 1, 2, 3. The second one of these sets of 3 to number 2. Then the third set to number 3, and so on. So it's always left to right as viewed from the street. And then I'll unwrap any bungees that I put around these to keep them secured. Looks like number 4 is a little out of reach here, so I'm going to reach through here and do number 4, number 5, number 6. The way I numbered these to keep a 6 and a 9 from being confused, I underlined the 6. So it's actually a 6 with an underline. Now we got 7. and 8. These permanent markers don't really last more than a year or two, maybe 2. So when taking these down, it's always a good idea to have a marker out and relabel them with fresh marks. And maybe I'll go do that right now. Alright, well, hopefully it's back in video mode. So I just unplugged these 8 from this tree. I'll just go back through, and if I see a 4, I'll make the 4 look better. Same for all the numbers. If they're at all questionable, I'll just mark over them. Like I said, I put an underline under the 6. That's just because I get confused with thinking that's a 9. 7, apparently I underline that one too. 3, and usually it's on both sides, so if I pick it up from a different direction, I can usually see it better if I label both sides. So just relabeling those, and looks like number 8 didn't get relabeled or refreshed, so there's number 8. So just looking at them all. 8, 4, 5, 2, 3, 1. Okay, there's an old 5. This is just a good practice so you don't kick yourself. There's probably ways to find this by tracing it back down here, and I might have some labels down there, and if not, you'd have to go inside and see what channel it's plugged into. So wouldn't be that handy. So now that we've got the 8 on the tree done, we will do this topper here, which looks like I labeled it as top 3. So top 3, looks like there's a label on this that looks fairly fresh. So there's the cord coming out. Top 3, I try to keep that separate from the main tree ones, and then just let this one dangle until the tree comes down. And now we'll remove the tree line. We'll start with, there's 8 trees. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we'll start with 5. Again, it doesn't matter what tree is what, they're all the same, but these cords matter. So this will say tree line 5, and I will just kind of remove it so that I can wrap these wires up later. This one was a cord I made myself out of a Cat 5. Why? Because it has farther to go than most of these others, and they start to lose their signal and their power at about 20 feet, sometimes less than 20 feet. So this is the furthest one. So that one was 5, then this one was 6. So we'll label this one 6. Okay, I'll just do TL for tree line. Tree line 6. And this one has an extension on it, so in cases where I need the extension, I usually just label before the extension. So here's tree line 7, and I'll probably leave that extension on it for right now. But one thing to note is don't look at the end of the extension, always look at the end of the main line. I found that when you label extensions and then move the extensions, you create new problems, so I generally don't label the extensions. And then this is tree line 8, TL 8. And if it's tight, I kind of push this to make a little more room, and then it'll usually come loose. So now I'm going to pull all of these back together. Sometimes if I find that these cords were all wrapped together, kind of like they were here, you could remove that, but it's kind of handy to know that these are all related. These are all tree line. So I just probably leave it alone and probably just start. Now the technique now for me would be to move the controller just a little further away. You notice how the arrows are aiming towards the street? That tells me that this box should be oriented like this, not like this or this, but like facing the street. That's so the cords come out in a good position for being here. In this case, I generally err on setting on the right side if I have to choose, especially because there's that little thing in the way over there. So I'll just wrap the shortest one on first, and then I'll take the next longer one and wrap it over the top, going in the same direction. And after these are done, we can always put some Velcro or a zip tie or bungee cords are nice around them. But I try to hold them down by just going on top of the previous layer. So you see that one fell. I'll kind of wrap this last one around tighter. And when I get to the end, I'll just kind of tuck it underneath these others. And now I've got the topper or the star on the top of the tree that'll go on last. And maybe for that one I'll run it around a couple of times. And again, bungees can make it cleaner, but they can also just make a bigger mess. So at this point, I've got that controller, the bungees that I used, which often these get worn out, so go to the dollar store or Walmart and get some replacements every year so they have a little more stretch left in them. I'll put the cord that I used for this on it. And actually, I think I'm forgetting one thing. This is the Cat 5 that runs all the way to the box here. So I'll undo that. I just ran it up these guy wires to kind of make it easier to walk around the tree. You have to assume some kid's gonna run through the show at some point. So just keep it from being too big of a problem by making it as kid-friendly as possible. And then I'll just wrap that Cat 5 around the other cords. This is really simple but really effective, and you can use them almost to tie up the other cords. Just wrap it around a couple times. It's not going anywhere. And then we can carry this off to a storage location using the built-in handles here. Probably if you used gloves, it would make this a lot less painful. I'm just gonna set it right down here for now, and we'll go do the next one. Alright, so now we've removed this one. We'll go get the stand for this one and start a stack of these wherever you're storing these. These do have Rust-Oleum, and I've generally just been keeping them outside, and I'll just make a stack of them in a hidden place. So after that, I'll take the Cat 5 extension that was needed here. Turns out these couplers, as long as they're a decent quality, and I have a bunch more of these, I've almost never had a problem with these. Sometimes in a blizzard that you might get snow in one, or you could put them in a baggie to make them more resilient to the weather, but a lot of the times they're fine. So I'll just wind that one up and bring it back to the network box where the network hub lives, and we'll probably end up with all the Cat 5 extensions sitting in this box just for simplicity, or we'll move them somewhere at the end that makes more sense. But when in doubt, I kind of leave them where I used them, and then I don't have to look at the stuff later and go, where did that go? I can just go, everything I was using is right here in the box. And I'll just take the lid off of this. The reason why the battery box is in this thing is that on a couple of blizzards, it's pretty rare, but if you get a true blizzard, it can kind of sneak into these boxes, so the battery box provides another layer of protection. And I found that nothing's really, even the blizzards have never gotten through that. So let me take this lid off. Alright, so I got the lid off this battery box. You can see every controller. Originally I had tried to make the controllers all red, but they weren't long enough, so I ended up going with these white ones that are super long. The distance doesn't seem to matter. So first thing I do is unplug all of these. The order of these does not matter. So just unplug all of these. What is plugged into these is all of the 5 controllers, plus there's a line going into the house so that I can remotely access stuff from inside if I want, including uploading new content to the show player. So once I get the particular Cat 5, sorry, it's a mess. In a perfect world, you'd measure it and have the right lengths, but what turns out to be the case is these long ones are cheaper, and you just end up with a lot of way too long cords, and just hide the mess in a box and try not to let it bother you too much. Clearly it doesn't bother me too much anymore. And take that, and again, there's probably a proper way to wind these up. I've gotten lazy and just do it quick and dirty these days. Tie that up, end up putting that back down in the box, and you'll see what else is plugged into here. In another box within a box, this is the show player. This is at 192.168.1.201. This is the Falcon Pi player. It has a USB to audio out adapter on it. This connects to your RCA ins on your transmitter. The transmitter has a volume control on it. So does the Falcon software, has volume on it as well. So normally I run the volume at about 80% on the software, and however I leave it on the transmitter, that's how I've been running it. But if you want to test it, you can go get in a car, turn on your radio to a regular radio station volume, and then switch to 93.9 and make sure the volume levels sound like they're matching. And you'll see this red cable here was going into the hub. So really the only thing is a power line going into here, which I'll unplug just to show you which one. This is the power for the Falcon Pi player. We'll just leave it plugged in so we don't have to mess with it. And I'll leave all the rest of these until we get to them. Alright, so now I'm going to switch over to doing the other, what I call Mini Mega Tree 1, MM1. We're going to go do this one next. This is the 51 controller. This is a rope that we can use for lowering things off the roof to somebody else, and you can just wrap it around with a carabiner. Once they pick it up, just unlatch it. Makes for a very fast way. So you'll see there was a yellow line going to the neighbor's house. That's been zip tied to the tree here, and I will disconnect it right here. I don't have something to cut that zip tie just yet, but you'll see that one was labeled 2 links after active controller, pixel net out, Sewell. Okay, so basically this looks like I put some Velcro around this just to hold it on here. We'll take that off. This just will hang, this short Cat 5 with a coupler on it will just hang off of the controller just like the cords do. Maybe hook it on last because it's kind of a pain. So we'll hook up, we'll do the 89 node star topper first. So that's this one. I will unhook it and then check the labeling for it. This would be the top one. So this will say top one. Hey man, I'm talking. Nerd. All right, 1 top. M1. We'll just pull that one aside. Now we're going to do all 8 of these. So I'll just detach these that kind of hold them off the ground, hold them out away from the bunnies and whatnot. So I'll just, these are the same as before. These are all number 1, then the next 3 are number 2, and so on. There's 8 of them total. So I'll do number 1. Do number 2. Number 3. Do number 4. Go over here and do number 5. Try not to fall over. Number 5. You can see I just use these bungees and carabiners to kind of help keep everything up and out of the way. And you know, in a crazy windstorm, they probably do a little more. But the main thing is to keep them away from bunnies, to keep them away from the snow, to make them less enticing to anybody, I guess. So here's the 8th one of these. So I'm going to take these off. Maybe leave that one on because it kind of shows that they're related. I'll bring these all over to here. Swing them up here for a second. Bring the first 4 over here. And again, we'll just check the labels on these. number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, there's the top, number 5, number 6, number 8, number 7. Now I'll go do the tree line here. We'll remove these. I think that one's seen better days. And then these will be tree line 1, 2, 3, 4. So we will do number 1. We'll just label it tree line 1. Number 2. And see, these cords are barely long enough, but that does make the signal work better when they're shorter. Especially these China bought cables. They're not very good. They go short distances, 20 feet or less. Tree line 3. TL3. TL3. And then we'll do the last one. Has an extension on it. I've got a variety of these homemade 12 or 18-inch extensions, which are handy.
Walking them through how to set this thing up.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody really wants to see it, but if you do, here you go. I mean,
Good way to do it.
you know what? If you're bored by it, then it knows you probably already know it. If you and I watched it, we'd fall asleep.
I'd be like, screw it.
You'd be,
Out
I'll figure it out.
It's like directions. I'm like,
All right.
I don't want to.
It's true. I don't.
I need to.
I should read instructions, but I only do once I fail.
Right.
If I don't fail, then I'm proud that I didn't need them. Yep. So here are the tree line cords.
Wow.
Yep, thanks Josh. And I'll also probably remove this. This is the controller Cat 5 right here. So in the sense that these were short, there's a little less cord to have to carry around on this part, but then I'll wind up the other part with these long cords. So you see here, this is the cord from 51 that I just kind of ran it through here to keep it a little bit tidier. Looks like I ran it through some other things to make it look a little more professional. I'm gonna undo some of these as we go. So I'm just pulling this white cord in. We will remove any bungee cords that were here, just binding them together. This is really optional, but it tends to make it look a little cleaner. And in a perfect world, you'd always have nice new bungee cords, but at the end of the day, I'd say these are pretty close to end of life. So we'll put these bungee cords here. We'll wind up this guy. I might have had this labeled to where it was going. Gosh, I'm not sure. A lot of it is just based on where you put them. You can use, it doesn't really matter what cord goes to where, because it's just taking the network signal from the controller to the hub, and it really doesn't care because the IP addresses are on each of those pieces anyhow. Okay, looks like this has zip tie, so I'll hold off on that.